This is a long-term review on the Benchmade 940 Osbourne. I got this knife. I think this knife is probably, if I'm not mistaken, almost 4 years. Well, maybe not quite 4 years, but maybe 3.5 years old now. I originally saw Nut and Fancy review this knife, and he pretty much sold me on it. Um, the main features that I really liked about it was that it was very lightweight. I think it's under 3 ounces. It's very thin, and it has the axis lock, which is my favorite locking mechanism on the Benchmade series knives. And it just made it, I mean, it looks just amazing. It's just an awesome looking knife. S30V steel, so it's a very good steel. I found the edge retention to be excellent on this knife. But what I really like about this knife is that it's so easy to carry, because as I mentioned, it's super light, and look how thin it is. It's just very, very thin, so it just disappears in your pocket. I can in-waistband carry. If this is my belt here, sometimes I carry it kind of diagonal like this. If the belt buckle's here, it would just kind of go in like that, and I literally don't feel it at all. Sometimes I forget that I even have it on me. So it's a great EDC. Now, my only gripe about this knife is I personally, as awesome as I think the blade profile looks, and that's one of the reasons why I bought it, was because I love the way that the blade looks. It's not a good grind, in my opinion and in my experience, for EDC. It's just a little bit too much geometry for using it on food prep, which is what I use it a lot for. This grind just doesn't, in my opinion, it's already a very narrow blade. It doesn't have a whole lot of height to it as it is. And then on top of that, you know, this grind doesn't go all the way, it's not full flat. And then you have this here, which, although it looks like it might serve some kind of a function, it really doesn't. I just find that this geometry kind of gets in the way of, if you're trying to like slice a tomato or whatever it is, it just kind of gets stuck here. That's just my experience. Tip though is, it's very cool. It's like this reinforced Tonto. I really love how it gets narrow here and it gets thicker here for some more tip strength. So that is kind of cool. But again, I don't consider this a hard use EDC. It's just it's just good for, you know, things like opening boxes, whatever the case is. As far as the my long-term experience with this knife, I really use this knife, maybe not quite every day in my rotation as of late, but I did use it pretty regularly for long stints of time. And as you can see, the handle finish held up pretty well. I mean, there's maybe a few dings here and there. Like if you see along here, there's a little bit of wear and tear, right? But it's not that bad. I mean, for as much use as I've put this through, it's not that bad at all. Clip obviously got a little bit banged up along the edge, but that happens to any clip. And there's just very light, camera doesn't pick all of them up, but just little light scratches here. So overall, this finish on the handle is excellent in my opinion. The axis lock, I know there's some people that are skeptics of the axis lock, but it's held up fine, never had a failure with it. I mean, I'm not, trying to chop down trees or anything with it, because that's not what this was built for. But for everyday use, this lock has been fine. This knife does have a little bit of extra play compared to my other knives, and I think it's just by nature of the design of the axis lock. I can tighten this up a little bit, but I actually don't like to, because I actually like to draw the knife by pressing this and letting it go open. And if you tighten this too much, then that makes it harder. I also like to close it by just pulling this back, and see, it just drops naturally. If I tighten it, then that doesn't happen quite as readily. So I like it to be as slick as I have it set up right now. So in my opinion, I'll deal with that little bit of play in order to have the knife to my liking. The way it opens, it's just so easy and fast. As far as the edge retention, I really use this knife a lot. and the edge held up so incredibly well. I actually only just recently sharpened it, maybe a couple weeks ago for the first time since I owned it, and I was surprised at how easy it was to sharpen. I'm not the best knife sharpener, but it just sharpened up like couple. I use a Spyderco sharp maker, and just a couple swipes with the rods, and this thing was just about back to factory. And I was really impressed with that. And it took a while for it to actually, for me to notice it get kind of dull. So this S30V really held up well. I even used it one time. I was cutting some kind of a dessert or a cake or something, and it was one of those aluminum trays, and I was cutting all the way through the cake, and the edge was just grinding up against the aluminum, and I was using a decent amount of force too, and I did the whole cake that way, and after I took the edge out, it was fine. So I'm impressed. You know, the knife overall, as you can see, it's really held up well. I mean, if I were to clean it up a little bit, it would look even better, but really held up well. Very high quality knife. I think it was 120 or 30 or so when I bought it. Well worth it. One of the best knives I've ever owned. So that is the long-term test on the Benchmade Osbourne 940. Hope you enjoyed the review, and as always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below.